Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. It is with immense pleasure that I am today addressing this August Assembly on the 2022-2023 budget presented before the House on Tuesday, 7th June 2022. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, before I delve into the ins and the outs of the said budget, I would like to make an observation about the role we lawmakers have to play. Members on the other side belong to the majority, and they are here to support any bill, any motion, and any annual budget proposed by the government of the day. Members who belong to the opposition are not here to say no at all times and oppose all moves made by the majority. Our role is to encourage and to support a bill, a motion, or annual budget such as the present one. However, we are duty-bound to make positive and constructive suggestions and observations in order to catch the eyes of the Honourable Minister as to certain weaknesses and shortcomings in the bill, motion, or budget. Though members of the majority are paid and condemned to say yes, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, opposition members may vote for or against a bill, a motion, or budget, but not without making such useful, pertinent, positive, and constructive suggestions in order to promote the general public interest. It is in this context that I disapprove the remark made by some honourable members of the majority, especially when there are personal attacks against one's profession. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, Parliament is a seed of democracy. Every member of Parliament plays his or her role under the Constitution and scheme made to promote and to maintain the public interest. And it is guided by this philosophy that I proposed to address the House on the present budget. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, from the introductory passage, it would appear that the budget has been prepared in an spirit de relance in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic and in a critical wartime context. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I am referring to the Russia-Ukraine armed conflict. Budget de relance means a budget containing measures designed to boost up the economy following serious blows and handicap. In fact, the blows and handicap to our economy was dealt with by the COVID-19 pandemic. Though the pandemic seems to be slowing down, we still have to face the consequences of the armed conflict referred to earlier. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, in Mauritius, the COVID-19 pandemic triggered massive job losses and substantial manque à gagner to the tune of billions of rupees. These negative consequences on the Mauritian economy must be said to be sans precedent. COVID-19 has impacted not only our economy, but the global economy altogether. The reasonable Mauritian citizen was expecting the government to come forward with bold, courageous, and daring measures really designed to act as an effective and genuine booster to our COVID-19 beaten economy. But, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, all the measures announced in the budget really meant to be executed and given effect? Or all the said measures so proposed calculated to serve as l'effet d'annonce? Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, if we carry out a comparison exercise between the current budget and the one presented last year, we can see several stunning similarities. We start with measures concerning supply of potable water to Mauritian citizens. In the 2021-2022 budget, at paragraph 33, subsection D, mention was made that 9.4 billion rupees were earmarked for the construction of the Rivière des Anguilles Dam and its treatment plant over the coming 3 years. Same budget, at paragraph 44, mentioned the following, I quote, "Government remains committed to deliver on its engagement to provide regular water supply to the population," unquote. Same budget, now at paragraph 45, we see the following, I quote, 9.4 billion rupees will be invested in the construction of Rivière des Anguilles Dam and its water treatment plant, unquote. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, the inhabitants of constituency number 13, Rivière des Anguilles, Suliac, and even beyond, must surely have chuckled with joy on hearing the Honorable Minister of Finance, Economic Planning and Development making such announcement last year. But Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, was this announcement given effect on the ground in practice? The answer is in the negative. Now, if we have a look at this year's budget, paragraph 300, subsection A, reads as follows, I quote, 100 million rupees will be provided to start the construction of the Rivière des Anguilles Dam and for the upgrading of La Ferme Reservoir, unquote. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, is this government serious? Is it giving the aspiration of the Mauritian people the seriousness they deserve? Surely not. In one whole year, not a single coup de pioche for the start of the said dam project. Now this year, 1 million rupees are being earmarked for 2 projects, the beginning of the construction of Rivière des Anguilles Dam and the upgrading of La Ferme Reservoir. We are still in the dark as to how much will be allocated for the long-awaited dam, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. I am sorry to say that the construction of the state dam has become a blink platform to so many engineers. L'effet d'annonce toujours. 1 year after the announcement of the colossal figures of 9.4 billion rupees for one single project, we now hear only 100 million rupees only for 2 projects. Let us presume half of this sum will be spent during the current budget period for the dam. Will the government be able to complete the said project by injecting 9 billion and 350 million rupees during the next budget period? The ruling parties, let me remind the House, this ruling parties during the 2014 electoral campaign promised to the electorate potable water on a 24/7 basis. More than 7.5 years, the said promise has remained an unfulfilled dream. On the other hand, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, the country has witnessed an unprecedented surplus of rainwater due to the recent Torrential floods, which has gone to waste due to this government lack of vision to tap any surplus rainwater for both domestic and non-domestic uses. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, paragraph 48 of last year's budget catered for 3.2 billion rupees, excluding the 9.4 billion for the dam. Investment over the next 3 years to expand our water storage and treatment facilities. In fact, the said paragraph reads as follows, let me quote, "We will further invest 3.2 billion rupees over the next 3 years to expand our water storage and treatment facilities through the A, upgrading of La Ferme and Moavaquois Reservoir, B, construction of 6 service reservoirs at Alma, Sorez, Cluny, Richard-Renaud, Salazie, and Aubry, C, installation of 18 pressure filtration plants to secure constant water supply at Black River, Montagne Blanche, Calbas, Saint-Pierre, Borloo, Rivière du Poche, Albion, Taillac, the Mount, Piton du Milieu, Chamonix, Amaury, and Oyeta. D, replacement of 300 kilometers of defective pipes. And last, E, installation of 2,600 smart meters to allow for automatic reading of water usage for large consumers, unquote. However, no mention was made in the last year's budget about the effective date of the commencement of the project listed at paragraph 48. Only hope was aired to lose of population. 1 year later, and nearly 8 years after the vociferous 2014 electoral campaign, only 1.1 billion rupees have been earmarked for several potable water-related projects at 36 different locations throughout Mauritius. Out of the projected estimate of 12.6 billion rupees in last year's budget, only 1.1 billion rupees have been earmarked in this year's budget. Was last year's announcement expected to have l'effet d'annonce over the Mauritian people? Sure, maybe yes. The question is, will the government earmark 11.5 billion rupees for the completion of all these water-related projects in the next year's budget? I don't think so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. Now, is the government aware that hundreds of applications for development projects submitted by the promoters island-wide have not been approved due to the clearance not being given by the Central Water Authority? Is our water network ill, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir? How come so many projects that could create employment and prosperity are not moving forward because of deficiencies in water storage and effective water distribution? If government will spend only 1.1 billion rupees over the estimated 12.6 billion rupees, how will the system work hand in hand with development and prosperity? Monsieur le Président, gouverner, c'est prévoir. This government makes promises here and there, but in practice acts like a heavy artillery, which is reputed to be slow in movement and clumsy in action. The ruling party, driven by demagogy, pledged to give non-stop potable water to our population, but today he is hesitating to invest massively to turn the 2014 electoral promise into a ground reality. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, let me turn to the paragraph 392 of the current budget, reads as follows. I quote, "We are constructing 13,758 social housing units across the island," unquote. And on paragraph 393, it stipulates the following, I quote, "For the complete phasing out of asbestos, we will rebuild some 1,800 ex-CSA houses for an amount of 800 million rupees over the next 2 years," unquote. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, the pertinent question would be whether the ministry entrusted with the responsibility for housing has had working session with the Central Water Authority to see how the occupants of 15,558 houses would be connected to the water network when application by several promoters and developers have been frustrated due to inability on the part of the same Central Water Authority to give proper clearance. In the same vein, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, another issue in the budget that is attracted my attention is the allocation of 1 billion rupees to the National Environment Cleaning Authority. At the paragraph 215 of the budget speech states, I quote, "It is indeed why, this is indeed why the National Environment Cleaning Authority has been set up under the aegis of the Prime Minister's office to develop our national cleaning strategy," unquote. It is my humble contention that the very setting up of the National Environment Cleaning Authority is a regrettable duplicity and wastage of resources. Cleaning of the island has always been successfully undertaken by the Beach Authority, Road Development Authority, District Council, Municipal Council, and the Ministry of Local Government. These authorities have the necessary manpower and equipment to keep Mauritius clean at all times. Insofar as embellishment of beaches, lagoons, and coral reef is concerned, these functions have for nearly 2 decades been properly performed by the Beach Authority. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, what is the pertinence to create a parastatal body with the same functions as the authorities which I just mentioned above? This duplicity, with Deputy Speaker, sir, is only a curable device to set up a white elephant to accommodate as many pro-government agents and supporters as possible with a view to securing the ruling party's chances of success for the next general election. Now, it is a matter of concern that 1 billion rupees have been allocated to the newly created authority for achievement of a number of projects that have so far been undertaken by the authorities which I mentioned above. The government should have increased the budget of the above authorities and supply more resources to them to improve their performance. Provision has been made at paragraph 383 of the budget as follows, I quote, "Moreover, we are providing 500 million rupees for the recruitment of 2,000 employees at Mori Facilities Limited for cleaning services," unquote. Now, this company has been created by Landscope Mauritius Limited in 2017. I have reason to believe the government will use the recruitment exercise to reinforce its political strength. Political gain comes first and national interest later or never. I now turn to the issue of waste management, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. No government will succeed in its drive to make a clean and sustainable Mauritius if it fails to successfully adopt and execute a global waste sorting strategy. In my previous intervention in this August Assembly, I stressed on the introduction of a system of waste sorting, pre-selective and recycling, so as to put into practice the 3R system of reduce, reuse, and recycling. Today, I am again laying emphasis on the fact that elaborate campaigns should be launched at regular intervals to sensitize households to place household waste in different biodegradable waste bags, commonly called sac poubelle. Green waste and plastic waste should be packed separately. As of today, due to lack of sensitization campaign, all household waste are placed in the same waste bag. As we know, plastic waste can be easily recycled. As at now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, only one scavenging lorry compactor collects household waste once or twice a week. Such scavenging lorry compactor makes no difference between green waste and plastic waste. This means that massive plastic waste finds its destination at Morshico's landfill site. I don't think there are sufficient eco bins around the island. At any rate, people do not use them to dump their household plastic waste. Only plastic bottles or containers purchased and used in public are dumped there. Plastic waste, together with other waste from households, are put in the same sac poubelle and remitted to scavenging lorry compactors together. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, imagine the harm of this non-sorting of household waste is causing to our environment. It is my humble appeal that scavenging lorry compactors should collect only non-plastic waste, whereas plastic waste should be collected in separate lorries by local authorities and conveyed to recycling plant. Unfortunately, the budget speech is silent on these pivotal issues. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I would be failing in my duty if I were not going to draw the attention of the House on an issue which seemed to have escaped the attention of the Honourable Minister of Finance, Economic Planning and Development, and that is the issue of our judiciary. This important institution has once again been the parent pauvre of this budget. Not a single word appears in the budget concerning the judiciary. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, many citizens of the Republic of Mauritius have been expecting since quite a long time measures in the budget to finance the renovation and upgrading of the District Court of Rivière-du-Remport, more commonly called La Cour Mapu. It is very sad to note that though each district should have a district court in its own, the District Court of Rivière-du-Remport sits in a building situated in the district of Pamplemousses. The ex-SIFB building, which presently accommodates the District Court of Rivière-du-Remport and the District Court of Pamplemousses, is not proper for court businesses. Now, it is a matter of extreme pity to see the state of the building which previously accommodated the District Court of Pamplemousses. The old buildings formerly housing the two district courts have been left abandoned and thrown into oblivion. The third surface of the building formerly accommodating the District Court of Rivière-du-Remport has since some years been used as parking space for employees of the District Council of Rivière-du-Remport. Quel pitié, Monsieur le Président. These two former courts buildings are our patrimoine and should remain objects of pride pour la postérité. There is plenty of space at both places where these buildings are, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. I don't think it will cost billions of rupees to renovate and upgrade the said two old buildings and give them back the status they deserve. These two buildings had been our temples of justice for several decades for inhabitants of the district of Pamplemousses and Rivière-du-Remport. Many honorable members in this House did practice their noble profession as barrister in these two buildings, and one honorable minister once served as magistrate in the old building accommodating the District Court of Rivière-du-Remport at Mapu. The same things applies for the District Court of Savane, which has been left à l'abandon following a fire. Since several years, government has been paying big money to rent a private property at Suriname to accommodate the District Court of Savane. We have the same scenario for the District Court of Black River. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, it is my heartfelt wish that during the next year's budget, the government will act reasonably to accommodate the necessary fund for the restoration and renovation of the four buildings formerly accommodating the District Court of Rivière-du-Remport, the District Court of Pamplemousses, the District Court of Savane, and the District Court of Black River. I now propose to make some observation concerning the Mauritius Police Force. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, no measure has been announced to finance the construction of new police stations or for the renovation or upgrading of existing ones. Modern Mauritius needs spacious and well-equipped police stations like we have in Trobiche, Central Flag, Cupid, Pamplemousses, Saint-Pierre, and Poudou. Sir, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, it is a matter of pity to see police stations like Beige-Tombeau, Goodlands, Triolet, Terre Rouge, Vallée-Pitot. The list is long, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. We need police stations having spaced, modern amenities where people won't be afraid to go and seek help. One more point, government has of late acquired a helicopter from the Republic of India for a very big sum of money. Now, insofar as the present budget is concerned, government is proposing to acquire another helicopter to toughen its drive against drug traffickers. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I wonder whether this is a wise decision. We already have 7 helicopters for a small island like Mauritius. I think instead of buying a new helicopter, that sum of money could be channeled towards steps, let's say, to improve the quality of life of our citizens. Why not inject that sum of money for the acquisition of other modern equipment that could be beneficially used to combat the proliferation of dangerous drugs in our island? Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I now turn to a very live issue, which is measures designed to combat flooding in my constituency, that is Pamplemousse and Triolet. In last year's budget, at paragraph 40E, 872 million rupees were earmarked to initiate measures to alleviate the pain and the suffering of people affected by flooding in the constituency for the village of Bechtombo, Pointe-Piment, Terre Rouge, and Pamplemousse. For such a huge sum of money, large-scale projects should have been designed and successfully executed on the ground. Unfortunately, only tiny and negligible measures were implemented here and there, like absorption pits and narrow drain. At Nevermil-Triolet, Bois-Rouge, Trobiche, Pointe-de-Piment, Bechtombo, among others, there is the stressful dilemma of the waterlogging each time these regions are hit by the torrential rain. No concrete actions has been taken so far to relieve the inhabitants of this painful trauma. There are some disturbing features on which I would like to lay emphasis. In the last year's budget, financial provision was made for the construction of a flyover at Terre Rouge. Same never saw the day. Aucun coup de pioche, Monsieur le Président. And we see the same financial provision in this year's budget. Another example, Deputy Speaker, sir, the market fair of Pamplemousses in the 2020-2021 budget, provision was made for the renovation, uplifting, and enlargement of same. Nothing came out on the ground during the budget period. The same item was repeatedly in the 2021-2022 budget, and once again, nothing materialized. And in this year's budget also, the same item repeats itself. Is this a glaring example of l'effet d'annonce, Monsieur le Président? This is tantamount of making a mockery of the legitimate expectation of the inhabitants of Pamplemousses. Now I come to the issue of incinerator at Calbas. For 3 consecutive years, mention has been made about the construction of an incinerator at Calbas. The people of this village are still awaiting the operation of this incinerator. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. Some 2 years back, I presented a PQ asking the relevant minister to consider the widening of Bonnier Road, Triolet, and also the widening Bonical Bridge at Bechtombo. The House was informed that both issues would be considered. It is sad to note that no due consideration has been given to my proposal, and every day users of these 2 roads encounter lots of trouble at these 2 places. 2 buses or 2 lorries cannot run smoothly side by side over there. I hope government will give my proposal to the into consideration they deserve in the near future. To conclude, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, this budget speech is far from being a budget de relance. On the contrary, This budget speech shows that this government lacks vision and the luring effect of some of the measures to provide monetary relief to a part of the population will be rapidly offset by the growing stagnation of our economy, coupled with the rising cost of living. I am afraid that the great majority of our citizens will become impoverished and continue to suffer under this government. We are still debating on budget speech, and today itself, Honorable Ganu announced that there will be an increase of 10 rupees on bus tariff. This is only the start of the bad days. With these few words, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I end my speech and I thank you all for the attention.